son's partner.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why.
The dentist.
So she live in St. Louis or something?
Good evening. Welcome to the October 15, 2018 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, there are a couple, I think we have one item on for public hearing tonight and some other items that people may be here to speak about. If you haven't signed up yet to speak either on items not scheduled for public hearing or for items on public hearing, please make sure you see Patty up at the front if you haven't signed up and do that before we get there. All right, item 3 is proclamations and presentations. We have a proclamation tonight in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Marie and your team, if you're here, I'm going to go ahead and read this from up here, and then I'll come down and let you say a few words. That's okay. Great. All right. Whereas domestic violence will affect 1 in 4 women in the United States during their lifetime, and whereas the problem of domestic violence is a blight upon the health of all American communities, large and small, and whereas the Wings of Hope Family Crisis Services helps the victims of domestic violence in our community by providing shelter, counseling, and other forms of needed assistance, and whereas last year Wings of Hope housed 142 women and 139 children in the shelter, provided counseling for nearly 154 victims, and received 4,722 total calls and 872 crisis calls on the 24-hour crisis line. Now, therefore, I, William H. Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Stillwater as part of a national observance, and ask the citizens of Stillwater to devote the month of October to learning about domestic violence and offering support to those programs which are designed to stop the cycle of violence. I had the opportunity to tour the Wings of Hope facility this week and to participate in the Domestic Violence Awareness walk and ceremony out at Boomer Lake, which was fantastic. And Marie, your team at Wings of Hope does a fantastic job providing those services in our community. And we're happy this month to try to raise awareness and to support the cause of breaking that cycle of violence in Stillwater. Do you have words you'd like to say tonight?
Good afternoon, and thank you for reading the proclamation. Good afternoon to everyone else. And on behalf of the board and the staff of Wings of Hope Family Crisis Services, we want to thank you for the proclamation. We are always very thrilled that the City of Stillwater supports not just Wings of Hope, but the citizens of Stillwater. And so we thank you for that. Thanks to the mayor for wearing his purple ribbon today.
Almost forgot. I had
Purple is the color for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We will continue as an organization to support victims and men, women, and children who are impacted by domestic violence. And our goal is to break that cycle of violence. We hope to provide safety, hope, and empowerment for all those in need. So thank you again for the support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that takes us to item 4, the consent docket. Councilors, questions, comments, or items you'd like to see removed from the consent docket?
Mayor, I'd like to see item B, the SUA Museum quarterly report.
Okay. Other questions, comments, or motions regarding the consent docket?
Motion to accept the consent docket minus item B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket minus item B. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket minus item B is approved. Okay, that takes us to item 5, public comment on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing. We do have a couple of speakers here to speak about, I think, the airport road realignment, which is under general orders on item 8. So I will go ahead and call up Gerald McLean to speak on that topic. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak on this topic.
Very good. I am Gerald McLean, who own property at University Estates area, 25 Liberty Circle. I also live at 3708 West Deer Crossing Drive. I have flown American Airlines about 5 times and very much appreciate the service to Stillwater. My son-in-law is actually American Airlines pilot. About 10 years ago, I attended numerous meetings with the 10-year planning committee that was looking ahead for Stillwater and considering building an emergency access road from Western Road through the airport area, south to the airport. Not to be used as a truck route, as they purposely said, we don't want a truck route through there, but as an emergency access road in case of an airport emergency. And so it was built, okay? The University of Estates community that in that area objected to the road as it was proposed to be next to University Estates. University Estates is a beautiful community with a lake and has over 128 properties worth well over $25 million. The road was designed by the city and state was incorrectly designed. And there has been numerous accidents on the Snake Road, as we call it now. Looks like a snake, not only because it's crooked, but because it can bite you and cause an accident. And there's crosses out there to show that. We were told the main entrance to the airport would be from the east with a beautiful boulevard from the east down Airport Road from Washington Street. That's what we were told. Nice, beautiful boulevard coming right down through there. Our Stillwater Airport has a military history as being a training facility during World War II, and at one time we did have a military museum at the airport. And we think that there should be a beautiful boulevard there with a military monument in that boulevard representing the contributions our military has made to our community. The cost for doing the one road in there, which is a pretty straight road, would only be maybe as much as 1/3 the cost of adding the 4-lane Snake Road that they're proposing to do. If the West Road is approved, it should be further to the west and away from University Estates and should be restricted to non-truck traffic. Because of the curvature of it, there's going to be air brakes and things going on, trucks trying to go through there because it's a nice 4-lane road, and we know what that's going to be for the community. Squealing tires and so on. We have enough noise with aircraft being flown over our area, which they're not supposed to be doing that, and they always say, make sure that you look up and see what's the number on that airplane that flew over your property. What never can do that. So, you never can complain. But all the property on Snake Road is owned by the city. Okay, the city owns property all along that road right now. And thus no property tax from the city, unless the city pays property tax, which I doubt. The entrance from Washington Street down the airport road has property that can be increased taxes as business develops along that road. And so with that is my presentation. Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexis Covington? Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Alexis Covington, and I live at 2720 State Street in University Estates. I'm also the president of the HOC, and I've never done this before. So I understand this is not a hearing, and so we're just stating our concerns. It's not going to be necessarily changing any ideas or minds or anything, but it is a concern. Like Gerald had said, our properties there are worth income for the city, and as a realtor, I know that there are 5 homes right now in process of being sold, and I have people lining up to get into our neighborhood. I don't want that to change. The University Estates is kind of this little haven in our community. You live in the city, but you don't. You've got this lake, all these trees. We do have the air traffic above the home and stuff, but generally it dies down in the evening and you don't have that noise at night. And with the acoustics of the lake, you always hear the games from the high school or the college, or even tumbleweeds when they're having their events. It's kind of a neat little place to live. And like I said, our biggest concern is just, right now, our homes are valued anywhere from $95 to $105 a square foot. We don't want that to go down. We took steps in our covenants to make sure that our rentals in the neighborhood, which are very few, it's kind of like the overlay. You can only have so many people living in the home, so that most of our properties are homeowners and not renters. So anyway, that's our biggest thing, or it's our biggest concern. I have no idea where we are in the process of this road being built and what's going to happen, and if there's any way for us to maybe give some ideas and some input on how to keep our neighborhood valuable to the neighborhood in the city. If we could know that, that would be great to know where we are in the steps and everything. And I think that's all I have to say. So hopefully I didn't debacle us too much. So, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you for being here. And we will discuss that item in more detail when we get to that part of the agenda. So we'll talk about where we are. Thank you both for being here. Okay. I don't have anybody else signed up for items not on the agenda. So we'll go down to item 6, items removed from the consent docket. Councilor Zanotti?
Yes, well, it's time for the quarterly report from the Stillwater History Museum at the Sherrar, so I see Amy's out here, and I just wanted to highlight a couple things. One of the things in her report was in 2018, they've had a total of 2,336 museum visitors, 7,175 auditorium users, bringing the total center visitation to a little over 9,500 visitors, which is almost 1,000 more visitors than last year. So I think that's something to really tout about. Congratulations to you that's a big jump. They had a very successful month of July. They did the Cool Classic Summer Concert Series, where every Friday night there was a free concert to the public, and they had a wide array of musical genres, professional musicians, and had over 500 people attend the concert series. So that was a very successful month in July. They have 2 returning history students from OSU that are working with the museum, and then they have 3 new faces. So sounds like that's going well. But I wanted to highlight, if you guys need ideas for Christmas gifts, I still use a paper calendar. Yes, I do. But our museum, for their fundraiser, put together these wonderful calendars, and each month has a different sponsor, and each month has a wonderful little history about Stillwater, and then it has the whole month viewpoint, and then it actually has the specific days of the month where you can write your appointments out. I love it because it fits in my purse. You can carry it like this. Anyway, it's $20. Just a neat little thing that talks about the history of Stillwater, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to Amy and her staff for putting this together.
Thank you. Is there a motion included in that?
There is a motion to approve the quarterly report for the Sherrar History Museum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Sherrar Center quarterly report. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. Thank you for highlighting those topics.
And Amy, you guys are open Monday through Friday?
Tuesday through Friday, 11 to 5.
11 to 5.
Sundays.
Wonderful. You see their sign out there on the east side of the museum. Just walk down those stairs and get your calendar.
All right. That takes us down to item 7, public hearings. On item A, I think we have a memo to postpone this item. Do we need a motion and a vote
It's
on that?
item B, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, okay. I can't read. Well, let's start with a 7A then. What do you think about going in order? Item 7A, receive public comment regarding a request to close right-of-way for West Street between Maple Avenue and 4th Avenue. This was continued from October 1st, 2018, and it's CC 18-115. Mr. McNichol.
Lance Gross will provide the information in that report.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. The closing before you tonight is located on West Street between Maple and 4th. The purple boundary indicates the portion of West Street that's proposed to be, well, where the right-of-way will be closed. To give you a little orientation, the university is located over here. Here's the fire station. Maple is at the top. 4th is at the southern end. 3rd is right here, and university terminates right here at West.
Just for clarity on that map, we're not talking about closing that whole purple
Oh,
portion.
no. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a great point. It's, the proposal is for just 20 feet of right-of-way on both sides. Yeah, sorry about that.
Just, it looked like
Yeah.
a big street we'd closed down.
That's a great point. This is the exhibit from the engineer that submitted the application. And you can see the 20-foot right-of-way on both sides of the street, proposed to be closed. This is a close-up. Maple is at the top, University is right here, and 20 feet on both sides. This is the section between University and 3rd. And this is the section between 3rd and 4th. And this is looking to the south at Maple. And the existing right-of-way currently is 100 feet. And it starts over here, probably 5 or 6 feet past the back of the sidewalk. And it extends over here, so it's a wide area. There's dedicated parking on the west side of West. And this is looking, continuing to the south. And the street is approximately 26 to 30 feet wide. It varies. And this is the proposal, or actually this is the existing right-of-way, the 100-foot right-of-way. You can see there's a sidewalk on both sides, a travel lane adjacent to the curb, and then it has 2 rows of center street parking. That's part of the form-based code, public realm streetscape. This is what's proposed. It's there's a sidewalk with parking adjacent to the curb, parallel parking, and a travel lane that goes down the center. One of the things that staff has recommended as a possible alternative is to go with an 80-foot right-of-way. That retains virtually everything as the 100-foot right-of-way does, except there's only one center lane of center parking. Still has a sidewalk, still has the bike track, and it's got travel lanes on both sides.
So there'll be no parallel parking then on either side, it'll just be the middle?
That is correct. Yes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Counselors? I have a couple, but I'll let you start.
I don't have any.
Amy?
No, I don't think so. I'm good.
Well, so can we kind of go back to the beginning here? I mean, we're talking about, so the street's 30 feet wide, the right-of-way's 100 feet wide, so at this current status, there's 35 feet on each side of the roadway that is right-of-way, that's not being used.
Correct,
Really?
essentially.
the 100-foot drawing you put up there is what we would like this road to look like under the new form-based code, under the relatively new form-based code. Eventually, when if this area redevelops, this is what that street's going to look like.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if we closed 20 feet on both sides of the road, we couldn't do that.
That is correct.
So we'd have to do the 60-foot one.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
which is this one.
Okay. And so what we're trying to do is find somewhere in the middle, because we don't want to, we're worried about, why is it that we're worried about taking that west street from that 100-foot right-of-way, this street, down to the 60-foot street?
Well, it basically eliminates the bicycle facility, the bike track on both sides. This is still a shared road facility for bicycles, which means they could, travel within the travel lane. But the idea of losing that, we've had some concerns from BPAC, basically.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, I appreciate that. We can go ahead. Counselors, any more questions at this point? All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. We have, I gotta find my right pile of paper here. 3 or 4 people signed up to speak. First, I'm gonna go with Stephen Gose. Stephen, I assume you're the engineer on this project?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8th. Here on behalf of the applicant. This started out with St. Andrew's Episcopal Church wanting to build a parking lot, and we were looking at the street sections. And so trying to figure out how to maximize the impact of the parking lot, what street sections would make sense. So we looked at going down to the 60-foot street section because it still has parallel parking. The parking's on the user side of the street, not out in the middle, so it's easier for people using that parking to get to their destination. And it also, in all candor, got us an extra 4 parking spaces in a parking lot. And for St. Andrews, right now, who has 7 parking spaces in that area to their name, 4 more spaces was a big chunk. So we reached out to the adjacent property owners because we knew with the closing, it makes sense to do it a block at a time. Had quite a few property owners who own multiple parcels within that block between 3rd and Maple and 3rd and 4th say, yeah, this sounds great. Let's get on board, do it as a group. So that's why it's a 2-block section. Went to the 60-foot section again, parallel parking, nice street in the middle, wide sidewalks. We were made aware about a week and a half ago of BPAC's concerns about the bike track going away, because right now my understanding is the east-west corridor in that area is 4th, goes up west to 3rd so they can get across Duck at the light, and on 4th they can get across Washington at the light down there by Wood and Nickel. So the request again was 60 feet, just a nice simple street section, more of a neighborhood, not all the parking. We would ask if we do start looking at right-of-ways, changing it from the 60-foot, that staff's got 4 alternatives. We make a 3A, that is, we reduce to the 75-foot street section, which still has the center parking, but the 80-foot section has a 6-foot wide bike track. The 75-foot section has a 5-foot, but there's a 2-foot or a foot discrepancy in when you add up all the 75-foot section. We could add an extra 6 inches to each bike track and have effectively a 5.5-foot bike track on each side of the street instead of 6-foot that's in the 80-foot section. So that's our request. Here to answer any questions you all might have.
Counselors? How many parking spots are you talking about in this lot in the first place?
Oh, you were going to ask me that 'cause I didn't bring that. I want to say it was like 26, 28.
That's with the 4 that you get from,
Yeah.
and then if it goes.
So if we go down to 75 foot, instead of giving up the city giving up 20 foot on each side of the road, it'd be 12.5 feet. So we'd lose 2 parking spaces because they're 9 foot wide, just math, 8.5 foot. Instead of 20 foot, we'd get 12.5 feet at the 75 foot section. If we go down to the 10 foot, we're going to lose 4 parking spaces.
So for you, there's no difference between leaving the right-of-way as it is or taking the 10-foot on each side?
Correct.
Okay, so, but if we went to 12 and a half feet on both sides, you could still get 2 extra spots?
Correct.
Okay.
And the bike track would
And the bike track would be part of the street section.
Okay. Are you representing all the other property owners, or are you just representing the church?
There's 3 or 4 that have joined in the effort.
Are there other projects planned by those folks, or are they just interested because they get more?
They're just
usable
interested
land?
because it more usable land, it cleans up the street section. There's one of them I know has a project in the 3 to 5 year time frame on the east side of West Street. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next speaker we have signed up is Sharon Scott.
I am Sharon Scott, and I have an office at 406 South Duncan. Also, I am a property owner there within that block of the Episcopal Church. And of course, we have no plans to do anything different than we are doing right now. It's rental property. But it seems that the right-of-way is excessive for the size of the street, and we do support the reduced size of that right-of-way. And I am wholeheartedly supporting of what Mr. Gross has proposed.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Chris Peters.
Howdy, folks. Chris Peters, 1406 South Duncan. I guess we're just going to talk about streets today, huh? I want a guy, I think probably most of you probably will understand this perspective, but this is kind of for maybe the people that don't, that are watching this now or watching this later. But the perspective of a child when it comes to our streets. So I'm going to start off with a quote from a website called Strong Towns. They kind of pose this question on their website when they're talking about revitalizing towns and neighborhoods and making them more livable places. And one of their questions is called a strength. They go through these strength test questions. And the question is it safe and feasible for children to walk or bike to school and many of their other activities without adult supervision in your town? Probably most people, we would probably be a big fat no on that one. But they go on to say, the question we're discussing today is an acknowledgement that a successful neighborhood is measured by how well it accommodates the weakest among us. If we can't build towns where our kids can safely play and run and grow up as independent people, then we have little hope of making our towns work for adults either. Moreover, towns where walking and biking are easy modes of transportation are towns where life is more affordable for everyone and city budgets are not bleeding money towards road maintenance. So clearly, streets are kind of a little thorn in our foot right now for everybody. We all agree. We all wish they were better. And that seems to be, right now, the city's biggest challenge, right? Is we got to go through and fix a lot of roads. And then what are we going to prioritize? So I've heard you, Mayor Joyce, say that, a more walkable, rideable, safer Stillwater is your goal, is one of your top priorities for, when you're done here serving your time, what, you would like to see.
I'm not sure I put it that way, but okay.
I'm not as elegant as you. But it's encouraging to hear, from our leadership, from city staff, from, it was great. Monty bringing BPAC in to show us some of these road projects and how they are going to, they're trying to figure out how to add this more walkable, rideable stuff to each project. So I definitely want to say I appreciate that. What else? I think this might be possible, but one thing I kind of wanted to say too is when we have streets that are equitable for everybody, it improves our community. We're supposed to be America's friendliest college town, but if you look on certain Facebook pages, you'll see that sometimes we're not, and it's usually related to infrastructure. It's usually everybody kind of can complain about the same thing. And so much so that, visitors coming to town are also complaining, like coming to a football game or something, and like, wow, this place is kind of crumbling. Now, of course, Stillwater is not, the only, place in middle America that's kind of going through this, like, needed repair. But imagine if our kids can actually walk or ride their bikes to school. I mean, how many of us probably take our kids to school in our car and it's less than a mile drive? I grew up being able to ride a bike to school. I bet you probably a lot of us did. And I think that's the ability for the kids to start their day with just some simple exercise. I mean, teachers would be appreciative of a kid that's already awake and, ready to go because they already got some outside time. But we don't have the
Chris, I want to just jump in real quick, and this is on a specific public hearing topic for this agenda item. So if you could tie this back to what your thoughts are on this specific agenda item, I would appreciate it.
So wrapping it up is, what do we prioritize? Do we prioritize a couple parking spots, or do we prioritize the plan that's been laid out for the streets? And I do like the compromise that they're going with, to still keep those bike lanes and still to go with that setup. Thank you.
All right, our last speaker signed up is Keith Reed.
Good evening. Sound okay?
Yep.
Keith Reed, 523 West Knight Perkins. Before I get into comments on tonight's issue, I'd like to remind you that even though I'm speaking on behalf of the Bike Ped Committee, it's important to note that the e-scooter movement is a real-time game changer, and we as a committee acknowledge that. As we have these discussions, e-scooters should absolutely be an important part of the conversation. It's even been suggested that we might begin using the term microtransit as a convenient way of addressing everyone not relying on cars or trucks to get around. I feel like I also should add, in light of today's news coming from campus, that I understand there are significant issues with Bird's business model that must be addressed. However, it occurs to me that if OSU would have began making a strong push towards the bike infrastructure suggestions when outlined in its 2012 landscape master plan, and that plan, by the way, relies heavily on City of Stillwater's 2009 bicycle trail plan that was approved by council and then put on a shelf. Much of this chaos and panic could have been avoided because many of these scooterists would now have a safe and secure place to ride. So now to tonight's topic. BPAC has a couple of concerns with the right-of-way closure. I'm going to need to access the screen here in a second. How do I do that? I have a couple of slides I want to show you. Thank you. Yep. See. All right. Thank you. First is the closure itself as originally proposed. Surrendering 2 blocks of right-of-way and wiping out bikeways is an awfully high price to pay for 1 or 2 parking spots, and I think we've already moved beyond that tonight. I do want to note that 1 or 2 that was in the original proposal has been replaced by a maximum number in the current proposal. Successful active transportation corridors are all about continuity and flow, a big point of contention for Stillwater, and frankly, one of the major reasons that we as a citizenship push for BPAC in the first place is our lack of connectivity within our existing sidewalk and bike path network. That this proposal would even make it to council suggests to us that perhaps a commitment to active transportation infrastructure is a long ways from happening by default, despite what some of our current plans and policies might suggest. We do appreciate the alternative suggestions made by staff and agree that it appears the 80-foot alternative, which, talking to Stephen, maybe actually 75, might accomplish everyone's objectives. If this is the direction the council chooses to go, we would like to see some additional clarification and assurances that this will include sidewalks and bikeways on both sides of the street, as the current language is a little unclear. And I think, according to his information, it does allow for both sides of the street. This also brings to light a larger concern. If you take a step back from the 2 blocks in question and look at the entire, and I'm calling it the TIF district, it may be more correctly referred to as the form-based code district. If you look at this map, this is all of the streets that proposed on-lane or on-street dedicated bikeway. So on first glance, this looks great. I mean, there's bike trails going every which way. But if you begin to concentrate on a couple of key spots, this is Hester Street right here. If you'll notice, you can move east to west across this area, so if you're a student going to campus, but when you get to Hester, suddenly you're abandoned. So you can ride, say from here, bike trail, bike trail, bike trail, bike trail, you get to Hester and you have to fend for yourself. Same way with University, it doesn't show a bike trail. There are gaps in how do you get across Main Street if you're on a bike. So I think this needs a closer look. Another example, and I apologize for the crude drawings here. My committee has beat me up quite a bit on these, but that's the best I can do with my skill set. These are the current streets that show on-street parking. When you look at this area from this perspective, it suggests that one of the primary roles of the TIF district is simply to serve as an overflow parking area for campus. So my question is that what we truly want this area to be? Parking garages already dominate this area. Shouldn't that be adequate? We can talk and plan and vision cast all day long about this becoming a vibrant multi-use community, but it will never reach its full potential as long as this much space is given up to car parking. No one wants a car truck sitting in the middle of their living room, their social hub, or the retail business, unless they're a car dealer. And when your goal is to create communities like this, living rooms, social hubs, and retail spaces are exactly what the sidewalks and streets become. As Stillwater moves forward, we hope Council will continue to strengthen policies, procedures, and perhaps most importantly, the day-to-day decision-making so that active transportation truly becomes a foundational part of what the city is about. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Just to follow up, given what Mr. Gose said about going to the 12.5-foot right-of-way taking and the 75-foot remaining section with bike lanes on both sides and sidewalks on both sides, is that an alternative that the BPAC committee feels comfortable with?
Yes. So we were talking about an 80-foot cross-section. So there seems to be a math issue there. So to clarify, we're talking, BPAC feels strongly that we need to maintain bikeways on each side and sidewalks on each side.
Thank you.
But, yes.
When he said the bike lanes would be 5.5 feet, is that adequate?
5.5 feet is adequate. I personally have some, as a plant guy, I have some issue with some of the cross sections, some of the sketching. When you start, 5.5 feet as a standalone bike lane is adequate, but when you put a shade tree adjacent to it, then it becomes inadequate. So there would need to be some careful thought given to plant material, plant placement, as it moves forward. Same would go for sidewalks. If you have a 4-foot sidewalk and you encroach a couple of years of landscape growth, that becomes constrictive pretty quick.
Nothing like hitting your head on a tree when you're riding your bike down the street, right?
It's a little bit of a
You'll be fine, 'cause
problem.
you should be wearing a helmet at that point, right?
I knew that.
There you go.
Not to mention a scooter.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's everybody I've got signed up for public hearing tonight, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll ask staff to come back and discuss recommendations.
Let's see, it looks like you'll actually have 5 different recommendations. Let's see, the first one would be to approve the request to reduce the right-of-way to 60 feet, closing 20 feet on each side, the original proposal. The second one would be approve request to reduce the right-of-way to 60 feet and adjusting the street assembly to include a dedicated bike path lane. Number 3 would be approve the request to reduce to 80 feet, closing 10 feet on each side. 3A, which Stephen had requested or mentioned, would be approve the request to reduce right-of-way to 75 feet, closing 12.5 feet on each side. Or number 4 would be do not approve the request to close right-of-way. Existing right-of-way will remain, and the church will need to redesign their proposed parking lot. Any questions?
And what, again, was the difference in parking spaces between the 75-foot remaining and the 60-foot? It was 2 parking spaces, right? Out of a parking space, that's going to be 28 spots total? Yeah, okay.
Counselors, any further questions? Lance, in your opinion, is the 75-foot option a viable option given the lay of the land?
Yeah, I think it is. When you consider the standards that we have to go by for the automobiles, we have to stick within, the set requirements. What they're basically reducing is the bike track and possibly the sidewalk. So, and like Keith had mentioned, proper plant selection can come into play as well. So.
Okay. And so staff's recommendation originally was the 80-foot right-of-way option.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Counselors, any questions, comments, discussion?
I'm going to make a motion.
Okay.
Well, I will make a comment. I think we set the precedence with this type of decision to ensure that all modes of transportation, whether you are in an automobile, whether you're on a bike, whether you're in a scooter, whether you're on your feet, wheelchair, whatever, people have access to get around. And so I think this kind of sets the tone. And so I am recommending that we do recommendation number 4, which is the 75-foot, 12.5 feet on each side with 5.5 feet. And then I also want to make sure that we are mindful of what we do plant in that area, because I think that also sets the precedent.
Yes.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion.
Okay.
And just to be clear, that motion is to close 12.5 feet on each side, which will leave a 5.5-foot bike multi-mode transportation right-of-way, correct? I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to select alternative, I think, 3A, which is closing of 12.5 feet of right-of-way on both sides of the road. Counselors, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. Thanks, everyone, for being here for that. I think it is important to, I guess, just to recognize the weighing of alternatives that we have in that kind of a decision with trying to, have the church be able to use its property and have enough parking, and then also to recognize the consistency we want to have in transportation options around town. So.
I appreciate the examples of communication and cooperation between the entities and feedback. I think that is also vital. One entity cannot make sometimes the sole decision, so I appreciate the example of actually working together to come up with some other options, so thank you.
I believe we just compromised successfully. See how that's done?
I don't know, are both sides mad? Isn't that the...
Well, maybe nobody's happy, but compromise nonetheless.
All right, that takes us to item 7B, which I hear is going to be postponed. Somebody may have said that earlier. Do we need to have a motion and a vote?
Hey, you do have a memo.
We do.
The applicant requested to postpone the rezoning hearing so that she could talk to adjacent property owners.
Okay. The requested date to be postponed is December 17, 2018. Councilors, is there a motion?
Motion to postpone item 7B until December 17th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone item 7B to December 17, 2018. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is postponed. All right, that takes us to the fun part of the meeting. General orders 8A, the Lake McMurtry Annual Report. There you are. Good to see you.
You ever get to tying those knots?
I did tie some knots at the Outdoor Expo, yeah.
Yeah,
And then I
good.
went camping this weekend and had to put a tarp up over my head. So
I was going to
great.
say, not a great weekend for
Yeah,
camping,
it wasn't.
man.
Wasn't at McMurtry, so.
Well, I assure you, you'll have a good experience no matter what at McMurtry. Council, Mayor, everyone, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Going to give you guys our annual report on Lake McMurtry and our partnership that we started back in 2012. I'm going to give you guys that I haven't reported to a quick look on what we do as an organization. We'll talk a little bit about our budget, and we'll also talk about some of our upcoming projects. I'm very excited to deliver that stuff to you guys. For those of you that don't know us out there, the biggest thing about our organization is our passion, hands down. From our board of directors down to our part-time staff and volunteers, those are the people that got this organization started, and this partnership with the city has been nothing but cultivating awesome fruit. Our mission out there, so for those of you that don't know, we want to protect the natural resources of Lake McMurtry and provide sustainable recreation to our community. So sustainability is more than just environmental sustainability, it's social sustainability, it's fiscal sustainability. We're trying to fly in formation on all three of those things as an organization. And so we do a lot out there, right? We do outdoor recreation, we do events, our fun run, our annual fundraising event, the McMurtry Mud Run, brings in $5,000 annual revenue each year for us, and we have 400 people sign up for that. Our kayak rentals, right? That's a new business model we instituted a couple years ago. Perfect example of sustainable recreation for us. It's low impact on the environment. That brings us $12,000 to $15,000 revenue every single year. So we've got our hands in a lot of different pots, and we're trying to diversify ourselves as an organization out there. Obviously, we're heavily involved in conservation. We just had an $80,000 grant awarded to us by the EPA to put in a permeable parking lot for the disc golf courses on the east side. So, and of course, we're at the Wildlife Expo teaching kids how to tie knots. Sorry I missed you, Mayor. One thing I did want to report on that was new this last year was our outdoor adventure camps. We strongly believe Lake McMurtry is a platform and a venue for education. We want to teach our kids to be stewards of our environment, stewards of our community. We partner with Dr. Nicole Colston from Oklahoma State University to do this. Camp was 5 weeks long, and she developed the curriculum for us. Right there is the Outdoor Skills and Living Week. Every week of camp was a different theme. So kids could sign up for week 1, week 2, or all 5 weeks and get a different lesson. Our staff was teaching them how to tie knots for the outdoors. Our staff was teaching them how to build forts. I took them fishing one day. We taught them how to identify fish, how to release fish back into the water. You know, a lot of people want to throw fish in the water. Well, and I tell the kids, would you like to be thrown in the water? I don't think so. So this year, well, yeah, okay, most kids do. I'll give you that. So this garnered $9,000 annual revenue for us in year 1, and we hope to expand upon this, and we want to double that next year and triple it the year after that, and really gain a lot of support. Like I said, education is a big thing for us out there. And over the last 5 years, we've been cultivating a lot of different partnerships with our community. If it's not for our community partners or volunteers, we wouldn't exist out there. And to give an example of that bearing fruit, we have a brand new playground out there. And so we're able to reinvest back into the park outside of our budget, outside of that. We had a private donor come to us, and they are a family that camps out at Lake McMurtry all the time. And they wanted to honor the private donor's wife, Nancy, with a playground. The grandkids always wanted somewhere to play at Lake McMurtry. And so he came to us with this idea and put the funds up, and we made it happen December of 2012. So you can go to lakemcmurtry.com and learn more about that. So next I want to kind of get into our budget. some of our income and expenses, and where the money has been going back into Lake McMurtry, and show you guys how much positivity this partnership has really cultivated over the last 5 years. So annually, this last year we served about 23,000 people, and that's not just Stillwater. We are bringing people from out of state, and I got to give credit to our trail volunteers and our mountain bikers and our cyclists. Our trails are some of the best in the state, and I really mean that, and they will tell you that. And I have people all the time coming from out of state and out of town to ride these trails. We have 30 miles out there, and so we serve a very large amount of people. I don't think any scooters have made it to the trails yet, but you never know.
Oh, no.
So the biggest thing for us is day pass sales. That's how we fund ourselves. You go to the YMCA, you buy day pass to use the facility. Same thing at Lake McMurtry. As you can see, our mission is working. Year one, we had about 2,700 day pass sales. Up to this previous fiscal year, 8,300 day pass sales. So we are increasing. We keep raising the bar, and I'm not done. I mean, we want to do more. $54,000 in annual income just on day pass sales. And once we get them to Lake McMurtry, we want to keep them with our annual pass. So that's good for a full year, and it covers their tent camping. We had $36,000 in annual pass revenue. So just those two items of revenue for us is about a fifth of our total budget for the year. And the great thing is we're making the park more accessible to people. They can go on lakemcmurtry.com. They can purchase a day pass online. They can purchase their annual pass online. And our online sales increase every year just because it's so easy for people to do. As you can see, our income and expenses, every year our total income for the park has increased. Our city subsidy has remained static for the last 5 years. And the previous fiscal year and this year, we took a reduction. And that's a good thing, because that means we're starting to fly in formation. We're starting to become more sustainable on all fronts, and we can do that and still invest back into the park at the rate in which we want to invest back into it. So what are some of those investments? Well, we've done 2 disc golf courses, and we've done multiple things. We're also working towards accessibility, social sustainability. We've built an ADA compliant RV site, and we have a lot of folks that thank us for this. They get out of their wheelchair and they have an ADA level pad and an ADA fire ring and picnic table. Park signage was another big one for us that we've reinvested back into the park. Folks come out and now understand where things are and what there is to offer, and those out of town people who have never been there before. RV camping is an excellent stream of revenue for us, particularly over cabins. We've researched cabins. This provides a really good rate of return for us. It's a low-cost investment. We get a good rate of return on it, and we're going to continue to increase this throughout the park so we can continue to make ourselves sustainable in the long run. So I cherry-picked a few things off of this list, but this is a list of the funds we've put back into the park with capital improvements. Everything from entry booths to disc golf courses, kayak and paddleboard inventory, all the way down to our adventure camps. We've put about $300,000 directly back into the property out at Lake McMurtry, and that's our goal. You know, we want to continue to do that, and that's how we figure it out. We listen to our customers. We listen to the feedback of the people that support us, because we constantly tell them out there, it's not our park, it's your park. Tell us what you want, and so that's exactly what we're doing. And so what's some future plans coming up? Well, I mentioned mountain bike trails, right? They're really, really big source for us. We're redesigning several trails, and we're expanding the trails. We're working on securing funding for East Side showers right now. The east side of recreation of Lake McMurtry doesn't currently have showers for all our user groups over there. We want to enhance the safety of our park, and we're researching grants for community tornado shelters. We're going to continue to increase our RV sites, and a big picture item for us is a nature center out at Lake McMurtry. We want to bring people out there, and we want to teach them about stewardship of the land, and we want to show off how great that recreation area is, and that's a big ticket item for us. And so I'd just like to end the presentation on one note. William Shakespeare once said, "One touch of nature makes the whole world kin." Out there, we like to say, "One touch of Lake McMurtry makes the whole world kin." Once you come out there and experience it, you're going to love it. So that's my report for you guys, and I just want to open it up to any questions or comments you might have for me. Again, thank you for the opportunity in this partnership. We've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
What you're doing. Yeah. I just had a question. Out of those 1 to 5 year projects that you have with the showers and all that, how much total for all those projects?
So are you asking monetary? About $500,000. Yeah.
Councilors?
Just one quick question. Each year, your revenue has exceeded expenses. Where does that little bit of extra go each year?
That is the capital improvement list. So that little bit, that's a great question, gets recycled right back into the park with kayak inventory. Adventure Camp was the big one this last year. We spent $16,000 on physical capital, and then about another $5,000 on development of the curriculum and hiring staff for that. And so that list is where the money gets recycled. So,
Jared, can you pull back up your income expense bar chart?
Absolutely. Hang on, I gotta find it. There we are.
So the question I'm going to ask you is, you've got it broken down with the city subsidy and the annual income. My assumption is the annual income includes the city subsidy.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't identify that for you.
I didn't want to make sure you guys weren't making $440,000 on top of the $200,000.
Oh gosh, no. If we were,
job if you are.
that nature center would already be there. Yeah. No, I wanted you guys to know that we have appreciated the funding we've received at the rate we've received it every year, and that the reductions that we've taken in the last 2 years totally suitable for what we're doing, and we're able to take those reductions because we're finally starting to get to a point where we are becoming much more self-sustainable as an organization. That's the ultimate goal, right? We want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think, we've talked about that before when we talked about doing these reductions. When your agreement first came into being, when we first started using an outside public-private partnership to manage the lake. Same with our other public-private partnerships in the city. The idea was to try to build these private groups into self-sustaining organizations, and from the looks of this and from the financials you're showing here, it certainly looks like you guys are doing a great job with that. Being a great steward of the public's resources of the city's property out there at Lake McMurtry. So we certainly appreciate the work that you're doing. What more can the city do? What more as a community or as a city can we be doing to help you guys continue to perform your mission out there?
Well, to be honest, you probably aren't going to like this comment. We get a lot of complaints about some of our roads, and I don't say that, I say that with a open mind and loving heart, and I'm not fishing for anything by any means. But
That'll
we do,
sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I just said nice things about you, Jared.
Yeah. And I know the city has, and I trust the city is making progress where they deem it's necessary. Lake McMurtry, we just continue to want that positive partnership with you guys and with the community members. We want to continue to be transparent with you guys and get called in for these kinds of meetings and these discussions. That's really all we want. And at the end of the day, when we have these discussions, they're always positive on our end. And so we're just really excited to continue to have this partnership. Sure. So,
well, and I don't want to skip over your concern about roads as well. I mean, you're talking about within the property itself, or the roads
particularly,
out?
So there's kind of like a dividing line that no one likes to take ownership out there, and it's Airport Road, also known as Alamo, kind of as you get towards the west side of Lake McMurtry. It's kind of right there on the Noble County, Payne County line. And so it gets a little neglected, and we get a lot of RV campers that drive that road to access the west side. And they call us up and they say, hey, all my dishes have fallen out because your road. And, sorry about that.
Just to point out for the record.
We know it's a county road.
It's a county road. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. So, but yeah, honestly, guys, just the opportunity you've given us to bring on community members to operate out there. I mean, that's really the biggest catalyst to this whole partnership.
Good. Councilors, anything else? Mr. McNichol?
Jason did not get the opportunity to introduce himself, and clearly
Jared.
he is. Pardon?
Jared?
I mean Jared.
Oh, I was looking for a Jason.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
He is clearly passionate about the lake.
Well, my address as a kid was 4407 West McMurtry Road. I lived on McMurtry Road. I frequented the lake. It kept me out of trouble as a kid. I hung out with Roger Bastian, the 19-year veteran ranger. I lived out there, man. It's my passion. It really is.
So what's your title at the organization right now?
I'm interim director. So
Excellent. How many folks do you guys have on staff?
We have 4 full-time. We hire 12 seasonals every year. And then we have 2 camp hosts that are out there during the summer patrolling the park after hours for us.
Great. All right. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate you.
When's the mud run?
Are you going to do it?
Yeah.
We should do it as a council team.
Should, that would be.
That was a terrible idea. I don't know.
Now
if
you're
that's at all.
talking, Mayor.
Game on, counselors.
You have to wear a helmet for that.
All right. I got to find my papers again here. What did I do with my agenda? What did I do with my agenda? All right, 8B, special events update, CC 18-117. Looks like Mr. McClenny's going to talk to us.
Yes, and I
He
will
is.
be near as exciting as the last presentation. But I'll try to be brief, so that kind of makes up for it. We decided to do this as an update because as we've begun working on this over the last several years and managing the services we provide for these events as opposed to having them manage us, we are learning, and it's been more of an evolution of continuous improvement instead of us being able to bring you a package of here it is, all wrapped up, ready to go with a nice bow on it. We're kind of taking a step back, and it's evolving as we go. So I want to tell you some of the things that we have done to this point. Considering some of the input that we've gotten, we've tried to make the process much simpler, and I'll show you that on a website that we're going to show you in a few minutes. We've tried to make it friendlier, too. The special events coordinator is no longer shepherding you through the process. They are actually taking on the event as kind of your advocate to help you get it done and make it right and make the best use of city resources. They provide guidance and assistance, and then they track everything as we go along. We have implemented the system where we limit the services we provide to the things that the city does, as opposed to trying to be everything to everyone. We provide public safety, utilities, waste management, and traffic control, and those are all normal city service functions. And those have had just doing that has had a fairly substantial impact on what it's costing us. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The other thing that we're doing is we're tracking the costs and utilization of those services under kind of the new system so that we get better data on what we're doing right now. And we should have a full year's worth of data using just those services in February. One of the things that we are ready to launch, and I want to show council this tonight. This is actually a website that we've created. It is active right now. We haven't promoted it yet because we're going to begin that on November 1st to actively promote it. But we'd like for you and anyone else who wants to take a look at it, give us feedback, comments, etc. But you go to the city's main web page to community, and then the special events guide is there. And in terms of trying to make it simpler, this is kind of one of the things that we've done. You've got step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. And then you can click on any of these, and there are links to various things within that category that sends you where you need to go, like you could go to skip to step 3 if you need to. If you have an event that has fairly substantial details and you're going to need electricity, water, emergency medical services, and things like that on the bigger events, then those are available. You don't necessarily have to go that far. You could stop with step 4, which is the application. So it just depends on what your needs are, and all along the way there's contact information for the special events coordinator who will help get through this. So we'd like for the council and anyone else who'd like to, this is active now. We're going to start actively promoting it. Like I said, November 1st. Give us feedback, give us comments, look through it, and tell us what you think. Some of the things that are under consideration going forward, and we'll eventually, once we have a full year worth of cost data on the services we're providing, we will ultimately, if we're going to charge fees, need an ordinance that allows those. So we'll come back after we have more data. and discuss that with the council. Another thing that we're considering is setting available calendar dates for events. Having an annual calendar where someone who wants to do a new event, because as we get more and more of these, it's getting packed up in terms of available dates and in terms of the resources we have available to support them, and give people some idea of, if I want to have a new event, here are the days and the weeks that are available that aren't backing up against something else. And then we're also considering setting routes for races and standard event locations, so that we wouldn't necessarily require someone to use a specific route, but there might be a cost discount or a break on providing support if they use a route that we have already designated and we know what the setup takes and it's easier for us. So that's kind of where we are. Take a look at the website and let us know what you think, and I will try to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions at this point, councilors?
Just a comment, thank you for, I think something we deemed necessary to have, as more and more people wanted to have events within the city of Stillwater. We want to make sure that it was consistent, that one entity was told the same thing as the next one coming in, and it was just a more streamlined process, and it wasn't frustrating, and then it also wasn't a toll on our city resources as far as what we could do or what we couldn't do.
If I may, Mayor, one of the biggest changes occurred October 1st when the alcohol laws changed. The city of Stillwater will no longer license an event. We will allow an event on city property if they have a caterer and if they have a special events license. That caterer obtains a special events license from ABLE. ABLE now regulates both, well, beer is now alcohol. And so there is no difference legally between a can of beer and a bottle of whiskey. So one of the things that is occurring right now is that ABLE is way behind on license applications and those kind of things. So if you're planning an event, you need to do some way out in the future planning, because right now I think they're issuing licenses. If you apply today, they're talking about being able to issue it in December.
Okay. If you're serving alcohol at your event.
If you're serving alcohol at your event.
That is well outlined on the website, by the way, to book that early and
Yes.
where to do it, even with a link to the Oklahoma ABLE Commission.
Yes.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful, just to be able to see the whole process in one place, right? Instead of having to go try to figure out where you're supposed to be, just having everything laid out there is a good thing. So we'll definitely get some of the folks who plan events in town to start looking at that too, and
Pilot test it with
Yeah.
some of those folks that run those events.
yeah. So if you planned events or do plan events in Stillwater, be sure to get on there and check out that new website and let us know what you think about the process. We'll take a look too.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, John. All right, item 8C, Airport Road Arterial Alignment, Transportation Corridor Consultants and Appropriation of Funds, CC-18-119. Mr. McNichol.
That would be our Transportation Director and Engineer, Monty Carnes.
Good evening, Monty Carnes, Director of Transportation and Stormwater. Have Russell Beatty here with us tonight with Olson and Associates to answer any questions. Russell's been here since this thing was conceived from the beginning. There we go. Quick background, this is part of a three-phase project that was begun several years ago between Oklahoma Department of Transportation, City of Stillwater, OSU, to improve access to the airport and northwest part of the community. Western Road from Farm Road and the realignment of Farm Road and Western and Hall of Fame was phase one up to McElroy. Phase two was McElroy to Lakeview. This is called phase three. Goes to Airport Road and then Airport to Washington. Excuse me. This will actually be in two separate phases, a 3A and a 3B, if you will, because of funding from ODOT. The preliminary study began in May of 2016. Public hearing was held in May of 2017. We've been waiting to move forward on assurance from ODOT that they were going to participate in the funding of the project. They've agreed to $2.8 million towards the construction cost. And the important part is they're paying for the environmental study that will address many of the concerns from the homeowners and university estates, particularly noise. That's a specific item in the environmental review that has to be addressed. And if the proposed alignment causes a problem, then we'll look at what we have to do to mitigate that. We like the idea of moving this maybe westward like this. We're not sure that FAA will agree with that. If you approve this alignment tonight, we still have to get FAA approval on it, and we've got to present them some alternatives to that. That would be one of the alternatives we would suggest to them. I would not hold out a lot of hope that they would approve it, but we will present that request to them as well. We've asked you to establish a transportation corridor through the city-owned property. That's kind of something that's important as we go through the review. Given that we own some property east over to Husband, though we don't have anything on the shelf right now to do something. If we were to in the future, I think it'd be nice if we already had that designated as a corridor. So I put in the request to approve the transportation corridor as shown here, plus extending it to Husband Street, and that basically be 60 feet either side of the center line of Airport Road from Washington to Husband Street. Again, in this area, this is the preferred alignment based on the study that was done. A couple of alternatives were looked at. One was to try and bring the road around this way and miss these two ball fields, or miss all three ball fields. The issue with that alignment was it severely restricts anything the airport could do in the future, because the road would be right there in the way of any expansion. Looked at another alignment that took out two of the ball fields, but it took none of the wetlands that are in this area. And then we took an alignment that went completely through the wetlands and preserved the ball fields. And each of those alternatives had some positives, and they had some pretty severe negatives. This alignment takes out one ball field, minimizes how much we take of the wetlands, and we think that's the best compromise for those two issues. The first phase would stop right here at this location, and then we'd tie into the existing road into the terminal area. The next phase would pick up at this point, come over to Washington and Airport. We could look at alternatives there. If you wanted to look at a boulevard type of project, then we can look at that. There'll be an increased cost for that, obviously, but we could certainly consider that at that time. I think we also need to look at this intersection closely at Airport and Washington. Put in dedicated left turn lanes, clean up some of that drainage and clean that up. That's both of these routes are first impressions for some folks coming into town, and I think that's worthy of us putting some time and effort into. Any questions for me or for Russell? Oh, and as we have down here, we propose to continue the bike trail, sidewalk trails that we talked about before, which then would provide access to this area, would eventually come over, connect to Kamioka Trail, since we've extended over here as part of the Wings of Hope, and further that connection.
So did you say that the environmental work has already been done, the environmental study has been done, including a noise study?
Russell, you want to come address how much has been done?
So I'm Russell Beatty with Olson Associates in Oklahoma City. The initial public involvement for the project has been done. Able Consulting, along with us, has been doing that for ODOT. ODOT has been funding that. We currently have a contract with ODOT, along with Able Consulting and ourselves, to do the environmental studies and the NEPA document for the project. That is just, right now, what's been done is just starting gathering information.
Kind of like a constraints analysis, and
Yeah,
that you understand that there's wetlands and that
Yes.
there might be noise issues with.
Right, so there was an initial reconnaissance data done that ODOT would request that identified environmental constraints based upon just kind of a desktop review. And so that has been done, and we have established an environmental footprint at which that the corridor would be studied. And so that is the phase that we're at now. The studies have not begun yet, but that is the next phase that is getting ready to take place.
And so the footprint that can you pull that up again, Monty, please?
Sure.
So the footprint then for the studies that you're doing,
Amy, is
represented on that?
Yes, the footprint includes what's here. The red line that is shown on this document, on this PDF here, represents really the right-of-way or the corridor, the transportation corridor. The environmental footprint extends a little bit further than that, just to make sure to encompass all of the environmental concerns through the area. It's very similar to this same alignment.
Sure.
Better. Okay, I think that's all the questions I had.
Any other questions?
And just so I'm clear, Monty, you said earlier that if we were to move the southern portion of that street further to the west, the FAA may have some issues. That's just because of proximity to the runway?
Yes.
Do we know what the requirement is, or what the guideline is for a city street from the runway, distance-wise?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe we do. If I have not seen that. And I can't seem to make this work right now.
Just with discussions for the ODOT some time ago about this subject, the RPs, the runway protection zone, they believe that this alignment would marry up with the RPZ.
We think this gives the best opportunity for getting through there. That's correct.
Does that basically follow the existing
pretty close
road right there?
Pretty close to existing alignment. We smooth out some of the curves, make them not as sharp.
It's a little less.
Yeah.
Snake-like?
A little less snake-like. That's correct.
But yeah, I mean, ideally, it would kind of come up a little bit, and that curve would be a lot gentler. But I guess if that's too close to the runway, that would be a problem. Monty, could you go maybe back a little bit in time and sort of talk about why we've moved from this sort of more emergency access to the airport, initial thought of building that road, and into this access? Why have we gotten to this point of trying to?
Again, I wasn't here at the beginning of this, but I think one of the main reasons is we have airline service, and that's a game changer. Mm-hmm. We've got people that will fly into there that need to get to OSU directly. Coming out that entrance is a more direct route to them, and there'll be other people that want to go to industrial activities in the southwest part of the community that would want to go that direction as well. So I think it's to accommodate the growing need at the airport as much as anything else.
Sure.
I appreciate the road placement being not right up to the airport.
Exactly.
We hope it'll grow.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, the idea would be that parking would go. Yeah. So the construction here, it says 4-lane curb and gutter. So basically, just like that new section of Western.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
general size?
Same
look,
general
feel?
size, and then the bike trail or the trail to the side of it.
Okay. Is there a thought about controlling certain types of heavy truck traffic? Would there be any sort of restrictions on what can travel on that road?
We can certainly make that a no-through truck route, certainly, for vehicles that might want to cut through there. Certainly, we can make that no-through. There are industrial activities in that area, so we would expect trucks to access that area.
Yeah, and I would think most of those come in off 177 on...
Or would come west off on 51 from I-35, and we'd come up that way.
Yeah. I mean, if you were coming coming in from I-35 on 51, how do you get to that industrial area now? Do you have to go all the way up to Perkins and back across? Is it?
We would want you to do that, yes. We wouldn't want you to try and use the road that's there now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine Western currently is built to maintain or carry a bunch of heavy trucks up and down it, right? Or does the design one way or the other change?
The section from 6 to Hall of Fame is.
Okay.
I can't address the section from going forward from there. It's a fairly hefty section, but I think it's fair to say we would not want it to be a dedicated truck route, but we would expect it to be able to handle some load of trucks.
And the idea here is not to create a truck loop around the city.
That's correct.
Good. Sorry, one other question. What is when we talk about designating this as a transportation corridor, can you tell me a little bit more about why that's important? What does that do?
That helps us when you're going through publicly owned property, and there have been federal funds for various uses in there, then it becomes, okay, well, what's park, what's recreational, what's transportation, all those different questions. So it kind of helps address those issues. If the council has said, okay, this part of this property we're going to use for this area. And so then from that, it just kind of, I think it's very easy to say, well, you got ball fields over there, so that was recreation. On the other side, that starts to look more like a park as opposed to, where does everything end, where does it merge, and those types of things. So it just kind of helps clean some things up, particularly when we're trying to dot I's and cross T's on some of our paperwork.
Okay, councilors, further questions at this point? Is there a recommendation that we're making and voting on tonight?
We have several. We have one recommendation with several pieces to it. We would like for you to approve what we call Alignment 3A, which the alignment is what we show to you. We would like for you to approve the recommended transportation corridor that extends all the way to Husband Street, as it's shown. We would recommend that you instruct us to enter into a professional services agreement with Olson's and Associates for the design, and also Keystone Engineering and Surveying for the survey work. And that covers that part. At a future date, we will come back with a project agreement from ODOT that we'll ask you to approve by resolution. And I believe the city's portion of the money that I'm asking you to approve and allocate was what was it, about 1.4 million, if I remember correctly.
1.4222.
Yeah.
Which is anticipated to come from the half-cent sales tax?
And we have had that money in reserve for some time anticipating this project. We've been holding on to it.
Okay. So no noticeable impact in future budget cycles?
We have included that. We've held that back in all of our projections for our pavement management into the future. That's correct.
And so with this alignment, and if we approve the recommended alignment at this point, it seems like there's still possibility that the exact location of the road changes potentially in the future? Based on the study?
Yes, but it would still be, and the part, well, you can't see this. The part that would potentially change would be down in this area.
Yeah.
But this part would be pretty much fixed. This is the area that would change down in here.
What would happen if the environmental study showed a noise impact to neighbors?
Then we would either have to put up sound walls, we'd have to figure out a way to move it further west, or we'd have to bury it. We'd have to mitigate
Sure.
we'd have to mitigate the noise.
Right.
That's
So,
some method.
so a part of that environmental study is actually to do a noise study.
That's
which would
correct.
measure the decibel impact of anticipated traffic on that road. And if it was found to be in excess of what's acceptable for residences or commercial properties, we'd have to mitigate that in some form or fashion.
And it would be based on the proposed alignment and the proposed configuration of 4 lanes. That's correct. And what we would reasonably expect the amount of truck traffic to be. All of those things would go into that analysis.
Right.
I kind of like the idea of burying it. The airport tunnel in Stillwater, that'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Seems cheap.
Just write the check.
I'm happy
You
to
might
do
be
it.
surprised what you find in that tunnel.
All it takes is money.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand here that if we do move forward and approve this alignment 3A, that's still not necessarily set in stone. There are still studies that need to be done.
That's correct.
To
That's
monitor
correct.
the impact of the surrounding area. So
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think the neighborhood's concerns around sound and the impact of a project like this and the traffic is certainly something we want to take into consideration. We also have a much bigger community that doesn't necessarily live in the area that also has concerns about having access to the airport and that sort of thing. So there's
correct.
some balancing to be done there, but we certainly want to assure certainly the speakers tonight and everybody over in University Estates that as we move forward, we want to balance all that together. Councilors, more questions or motions?
I have just one more. As a part of the environmental study or the future study, will there be opportunity for the public to input on that? At what level are they completing the NEPA process?
Yes, so there are planned future public meetings for this, especially since this is area that the ball fields include is a 6F area, because there's been funding for the ball fields. There definitely will be some additional meetings associated with that.
Okay.
So it is planned as part of the studies.
Councilors?
So do we need to approve each one of these?
You could make
I think
a
you could do one.
motion to approve the staff recommendation. or
Approve
to accept the
alternative
staff
1?
recommendation. Or you could break them all out.
I will make the motion to approve staff recommendation at this point.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation, which is outlined as alternative 1, those 4 points in the agenda item. So, councilors, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. All right, that takes us to item 9, resolutions. We'll start with resolution number CC-2018-19, a resolution of the Stillwater City Council prohibiting the flying of unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, during certain public events on October 26 and 27, 2018. This is our resolution that keeps people from flying drones over homecoming walk around and the parade.
Yes, sir.
Councilors, any questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC 2018-19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, resolution 2018-19 is approved. Item B, Resolution CC-2018-20, a resolution appropriating $6 million from the general fund, $500,000 from the half-cent sales tax fund, and $120,000 from the stormwater fee fund for use as provided below. This is the resolution that puts into resolution form our discussion from last meeting about the use of reallocation of funds. Monty, you have specifics on this?
Yes. We revised that resolution to take out the $500,000 from the half-cent sales tax, and I'm sorry that you didn't get the corrected resolution. So the $500,000 has not been part of any of the other actions you've taken tonight, and I would suggest that you remove that portion of it.
Okay.
And again, I'm sorry that you didn't get the corrected resolution.
Mr. Dorman, do you?
We can delete that part, and I can bring you a conformed version to sign later if the council's okay with adopting the resolution as presented, less the $500,000 from the half-cent sales tax fund.
Councilor Woodlake?
I'm just trying to decide if we need to approve adopt the resolution tonight, or just bring it back to the table as.
And we can do that as well.
I would prefer to bring it back.
I agree.
That'd be the best scenario.
We'll do
in
that.
an appropriate manner. I had no idea that there was a change in that, so.
That's all right. We'll bring that one back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Monty. Is there any change to the second one? Well, let's jump to item C, resolution. Well, do we need to do anything with B to postpone it?
No, sir.
All right. We'll just wait on that one. Item C is Resolution CC-2018-21, which is a resolution appropriating $1,422,000 from the general fund from the half-cent sales tax fund for uses provided below. This one is from the half-cent sales tax? And which projects is this one for? Yep. Okay. This is for the airport stuff. All right, councilors, questions or motions on this one?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC 2018-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt CC 2018-21. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that resolution is approved. All right, item 10A, ordinances on first reading. Ordinance number 3419, an ordinance amending and repealing portions of Chapter 3, Stillwater City Code, titled Alcoholic Beverages, by amending Article 1 in general, Section 3 through 5, Hours of Operation, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Dorman.
This is a little housekeeping on our recent revisions to the alcohol code. As I mentioned to you when we adopted that some time ago, there were a number of statutes that were presented to the legislature after the passage of the bill that modernized alcohol in Oklahoma. And one of the late statutes made some changes to the opening and closing times of the various establishments. And so what this does is brings that in line with those amendments that came late in the session regarding hours of operation. For the record, we have told the operators that state law governs in this instance, so there's been no impact on their businesses. This simply brings our ordinance into compliance with what the state law is. The final sentence here deals with the county option component that was actually adopted by the legislature, which it is possible that there may be a vote in Payne County at some point in the future as to whether to open liquor stores on Sundays. And if that comes, then this would it would not be necessary to to amend this ordinance to comply with that. Also, we do have a county option liquor or mixed drink provision that was adopted, Norman, 3 or 4 years ago? Yes. And the opening days are a little bit different than the state law provides. I think there are a couple more days that the county actually requires that the establishments be closed that the state statute does not provide for. So we just decided the simplest way to do it was to simply refer to county option whenever there was a question as to what was the appropriate standard to use. The officers have all been advised as to follow what the state law is, and so there's been no glitch in terms of getting the modernization implemented.
Okay. So this says 8 to midnight on package sales?
Yes, sir.
Is that what this new state law is? That's
Yes.
not the existing.
No, it's what it is right now. It's 8 o'clock. We actually, when the vote was taken, it was 10 to midnight, but the legislature decided to extend the hours as part of the compromise with the package store operators who were unhappy about the outcome of the vote. And so they extended that to 8 a.m. On mixed drinks, it could actually start at 6 o'clock in the morning. There is a provision in there, but we went with the state law at 8 a.m. If you decide you want 6 and want to let people have a eye opener,
Don't mind
it's
if I
up to
do.
you. Know that it is possible.
Okay, so I guess I just wasn't aware that liquor store hours had changed that drastically.
I
with
was
this new law.
rather shocked too when it was brought to my attention. As I said, when we drafted this, we used the session law so that we could get the latest version. And there was yet another round of these things that went through very late in the session, so.
So liquor stores are open 8 a.m. to midnight. Walmart can sell beer and wine from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
The liquor stores can choose whether or not they want to be open that. They don't have to be.
Yeah, sure. And then we're going to say if the county changes anything or if the county makes any days or changes, that kind of thing, we just conform to it without having to change our ordinance.
Right, we think
Okay.
because the county, that would govern, and so
Yep.
rather than to have to keep changing the ordinance, we thought it was probably expedient to just refer to whatever the latest county option is.
Okay. And we have an emergency clause in here because this stuff is in place already and we kind of need to get our
We did
house in
not
order.
to conform them, but I will need to change the date since we don't have a meeting on the 22nd, so the second reading would actually be on November 5th.
Okay. Okay. Counselors, other questions or motion on this ordinance?
Motion to advance ordinance number 3419 to second reading.
We have a motion and a second on ordinance 3419. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, ordinance 3419 is advanced to second reading. Item 11, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
2 items, Mayor, thank you. We're seeing lots of campaign signs. It's that time of year. Just a reminder, these signs may not be placed on public property, including city parks, public structures, traffic signs, utility poles, and bus shelters. People may not place temporary signs on private property without the property owner's permission. Oklahoma law does not allow for temporary signs along state highways, which mean no signs are allowed on sidewalks or in the space between the curb and the sidewalk. In Stillwater, the state highways are State Highway 51 or 6th Street and US 177 or Perkins Road. There's a lot of them out there, and they are between the road and the sidewalk. That is asking to get them picked up.
On 51 in Perkins it is, yeah.
Right.
Other places, that's okay, as long as you have the property owner's permission.
As long as you have the property owner's permission.
And since there are still some out there from the primaries, like, it would be really great if people pick those things up after you're done with them.
It would, and another thing, you want to make sure that at intersections that they're not in what we call a sight triangle. If you look to your right and the sign's on your right and you can't see the other lanes that you're turning into, it's too close to the road. So, it's that time of year. One other thing's at that time of year. Some years ago, back when Mike Henson was mayor, which is quite a few years ago, the city of Stillwater made the great mistake of changing the date of Halloween. And that...
No, we had that power.
Don't go there.
It was a great debate about that. That has stuck with us for years. So people call in and they say, okay, when are you setting Halloween? Well, we haven't done that for probably 20 years. 15.
There was a short-lived mayor that did it one time.
Yeah. So at any rate, traditional trick-or-treat is on Halloween, Wednesday, October 31. If you in your individual neighborhood want to decide when to start and end trick-or-treat, you're up to doing that. The only time, Halloween's on October 31. So if you want to change it for your area, please do so.
So the city is taking no official stance on when we should trick or treat.
Other than the official stance, which their official day, which is
Just the 31st.
which is October
Trick or treat
31,
on the 31st.
Wednesday the 31st.
But
Okay.
on Tuesday the 30th, it's downtown trick or treating, so if you want Tuesday.
That's right.
There
trick or
is.
treating, you can come downtown.
There is a Halloween festival on Tuesday the 30th.
And I think someone's going to talk about that.
my thunder.
I have no idea what. Councilor Zanotti.
In case you're wondering about the skate park, the contractor is hoping to complete the project in the next 3 to 4 weeks. This rainy weather has not been kind to this project, so hang in there. It plans to be done in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then also, it's also time to start thinking about planning your holiday travel now and fly from the Stillwater Regional Airport. These seats fill up fast. Go to aa.com to secure your ticket. I promise you the best part of the trip is driving home. 10 minutes.
Thank you. Councilor Wedlake.
Thank you, sir. Here's a reminder for the Fall Household Hazardous Waste Collection, which is coming up on Saturday, October 20th at the Convenience Collection Center, which, for those of you that don't know, is on Perkins Road near Perkins and 9th. Bring items like oil-based paints, pesticides, herbicides, cleaning products, pool chemicals, fertilizer, and more for, I'm going to say this for the cheap seats, for free and proper disposal. For more information, go to the city's website at stillwater.org.
Thank you, Councilor Wedlake. Councilor Jaloski. I wonder what you're going to have.
I don't know. We're all waiting on pins and needles. The Downtown Stillwater Merchants Association has added a costume contest to the Downtown Halloween Festival on October 30th. The costume contest starts at 5:30 for newborns through pre-K. Every 30 minutes is a new category, ending at 7:30 with the pets category. Go to stillwater.org for the complete schedule. How fun is that?
Are you judging?
No, I mean, I want to.
I think you should.
Pre-K,
Are you
I can't
participating?
participate, so.
Well,
On council, that was your initiation.
Yeah.
Judge the Halloween.
Because
would love to
it gets a little heated.
judge.
You don't want to. You don't want to. You don't want to tell which people's kids are cuter than others. All right. Thank you all for the announcements. Item 13 is appointments. We have an open planning commission seat. We actually have a pretty long list of folks who have applied to this, which is fantastic. I haven't had time to get through it all and kind of figure out who's on there and talk to some folks about all that. So I would like for us to postpone that until our first meeting in November to make appointments to the planning commission so we can do a thorough job of looking at all those folks who applied. So that's great. Good problem to have. A lot of qualified candidates for planning commission. So we'll take a look at that on November 5th.
How many positions are we filling? Is it just?
Well, there are
One?
there are three positions. There are two that are expiring. One where Ariel Ross has resigned from the planning commission. Two others that are renewing or could be renewed. So potentially there are three. Those other two have indicated their willingness to be reappointed, and then we have 11 additional applications, I think. So there's a lot of decision-making to be done there. So we'll take a look at that on November 5th. All right, that takes us to item 14, adjournment. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, we're now adjourned. Thank you all. We'll jump right over to the Stillwater Utilities Authority. I'll go ahead and call that. And we'll look at the consent docket. Trustees, questions or motions on the consent docket?
If you do have a question.
motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. The consent docket is approved. Takes us down to resolutions. SUA 2018-8, which this is a different one. Okay. Resolution SUA 2018-8, a resolution transferring $1,800,000 from Stillwater Utilities Authority Waste Management Fund balance and $3,550,000 from the Stillwater Utility Authority administratively designated reserves to the City of Stillwater General Fund for uses provided below. This is the resolution that effectuates our discussion from 2 weeks ago. Counselors, trustees, excuse me. Comments, questions, or motions?
Motion to adopt resolution SUA 2018-8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the resolution is approved. Item 6, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
No item, sir.
Trustees, is there a motion?
I'm going to go for the hat trick and make a motion to adjourn.
Hey, good for you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the SUA meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the SUA meeting is adjourned. All right. Stillwater Economic Development Authority regular meeting for October 15, 2018. I'm going to call that meeting to order. On the consent docket, trustees.
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Down to reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
A couple of items, sir. Number one, request executive session pursuant to 25 OS subsection 307B3 for the purpose of confidential communication regarding the purchase or appraisal of real property. Second, request an executive session pursuant to 25 OS subsection 307B4 for confidential communication between the trustees and general counsel concerning a pending investigation involving Business Stillwater okaying. It's my opinion the disclosure of this matter will seriously impair the ability to conduct this pending investigation in the public interest.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McNichol?
No items.
Trustees?
No, sir.
All right. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
Move to enter executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter executive session. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, we'll now enter executive session. Thank you all.